Excuse me, sir. Is the Earth round or flat?
Flat.
Why do you say that?
Because of the firmament.
What's the firmament?
Do you even read the Bible, bro?
What up, what up? You are now listening to Once Upon a 785, the dopest podcast in the Midwest. I'm your host, Georgie350. Let's get into it, bitch. What up and welcome to another episode of Once Upon a 785. Today's date is February 6th, 2025. As always, I'm your host, Georgie350. This is episode 28. And I have an amazing guest, Cristy Nicole, from the podcast Divinity Unearthed. And all I can say is put your seatbelts on because this is an amazing episode. But as always, before we start the show, let's do some quick plugs. I'm going to start first by plugging my TikTok at Georgie350. Come hang with me when I go live, check out all my videos, and make sure you check out my showcase so you can buy some dope-ass products from the TikTok shop. Also, I'm on Cameo now at Georgie350, so go check me out for any personalized videos you want. And you already know, I have 3 places you can go get some dope clothing. First is habits365.com and use promo code Georgie350 to get 15% off your order. Next, you can go to reaperapparelco.com and use promo code Georgie350 and get 10% off your order. And last but not least, you can go to cocoburry.com for your premium sweatsuits. They got all different colors and use promo code Georgie350 to get 30% off your order. Also, check out the Flat Earth Sun and Moon clock in the App Store, but make sure you use my referral link or use the code Georgie so they know who sent you. If you would like to watch the video version of the podcast instead of just hearing it, I have 2 options. First, for $5 a month, you can go to patreon.com/onceupon-a785. You'll get the episode before everyone else, and you won't have to listen to any of this. The intro for Patreon will now be completely different. Or if you use Spotify, you can sign up for my premium subscription plan straight through Spotify for just $2.99 and get the video version. But another spoiler alert, this video is also going to be for free on Spotify and Patreon. Also, questions, comments, or if you want to come on the show, you can email me at onceupon-a785@proton.me. That's M as in Mary, E as in everybody. Lastly, if you want to support me and you enjoy the show, do me a favor and leave a rating or a review or just share the show with someone who you think might find it interesting. I appreciate it greatly. Because any way you can support helps me get closer to being able to hopefully do this full time someday. And now, let's get into today's episode. What up? And we are back again. And I have a guest, Cristy Nicole. She's the host of Divinity Unearthed, and she does have a small business, a crystal shop. If you would, I guess a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, so I am born and raised and still in South Louisiana. So Baton Rouge area is kind of where my shop is now. I grew up in a smaller town that was in between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and grew up very Catholic next to my, grandmother who went to church multiple times a week and did the whole Sunday school to confirmation, the whole thing. And just was in a very toxic relationship for a good period of my life. And then started going the spiritual route to try to deal with anxiety and lots of things that I had going on at the time. And then that just snowballed. And started getting into crystals, opened up a little crystal shop, and it's like a little healing center as well. We do like full moon circles, meditations there. We have a Pandora Star light, like it's a light trance machine you can go under. I'm also a spiritual coach, all those things. So one thing led to another. So not at all where I thought that I would be when my life first started, which is really interesting because I have a 17-year-old son who's a senior in high school. And so he's in that overly freaking out, doesn't want to be a failure in, his life. And so he's trying to figure out what is like the best investment of his time that's also like challenging, and he's trying to figure his life out. And I'm just like thinking to myself, I'm about to be 40 and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And it's just like, I feel like I've had that energy my entire life. And so, but yeah, so here we are now where I realize through the spiritual journey that I have abilities that most people do not have. And that is where we are. So
That I have so many questions now. That's what's awesome. And yeah, that's pretty much what everything that you led up to, that's what inspired you to start the crystal shop and the spiritual practice.
Yes, well, so the crystal shop kind of came first. Okay. So I was already like a spiritual coach, but I was more on the kind of like the bullshit mainstream spiritual path, that whole monkey mind type thing, calming them. Like I was on that route. Like I was doing like meditations to quiet my mind, and I was stressing out whenever like my mind couldn't get quiet. And I went through that whole traditional spiritual route that most people stay on, right? So that's like the traditional matrix programming spiritual route. Okay. You incarnate, you think you're becoming oh so spiritual. Really, you're just following along what your little incarnation, your little matrix plan was. And you go through your life feeling so, peace and calm. And meanwhile, that was just your programming for you to follow along with no matter what. You didn't overcome anything. You didn't go outside of the matrix. We're literally doing what you were supposed to be doing the entire time. I had that little trip for a minute. Okay. I was very much in that. I had a whole like little meditation space where I would sit. My kids would meditate with me, which is really beautiful. I learned how to meditate by doing that. I don't regret that part of my journey. It was necessary. And so then my mom is actually the one who decided to open up this crystal shop. And I was like, sure, totally. Like that could be a whole vibe. I like rocks. And so, and I kind of call it like my little trap house because, I sell rock and crystal. So it's like my little trap house. And so that's a whole vibe all in itself. I really like it. But being in that setting, it was like the necessary catalyst to get me to where I am now. So I was already like a spiritual coach, helping people meditate. I'm like a joy and purpose life coach. And, I'm like, I have several different little life coaching certificates. I'm a relationship life coach because after you get out of a shitty one, you want to figure out all the ways to not get back into that. I'm like an emotional awareness coach and all of these things. That's where I was before, right? And I still am all those things because you can't separate any of them. But then I had a bit of a prophetic moment, like there are just people who come and they say really prophetic shit to you. And, at the time I knew that it was significant. And you hear that all the time. People talk about like people come and give them prophecies about their life. And I never thought that I would have been one of those people. And so we had somebody who came through the shop and told me basically that essentially told me how powerful I was and that my abilities would all click on in the next couple months. And whenever they clicked on, it would be like a light switch, except I would never be able to turn them off ever again. So just, no big deal. Just, you're about to alter my entire fucking existence. And it's just like, oh yeah, by the way, your ability is going to turn on and you're never going to be able to turn them off. So I'm like, okay. So some time's going by and I like feel like nothing is happening. And I'm just like, what's going to happen if it don't happen in 2 months? Do I like miss my calling? And is this bullshit? So I started having like this existential crisis. So being in a crystal shop, you meet a lot of healers. A lot of different people come through the shop. So we had this lady who was doing sound bowl healing in the shop. She's also like a Reiki master, and she did like Reiki certifications, and that teaches light language and all that sort of thing. And basically, I became really, good friends with her. Her coming through the shop and doing events there. And I basically told her, I said, Carrie, you have to coach me. She's like, well, I don't do that. Like, I'm not a psychic ability coach. And I'm like, so she's like, okay, well, let me think about it. Cause she could like tap in and talk to angels and all of this shit. And I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, but yet I get nothing. And so she came back the next day and she said, my guides told me. I went home, and it's like, as soon as I tapped in about it, they said, you absolutely have to do it. She's like, but I don't know what to do. She's like, don't worry about it. We'll tell you as it comes. You guys will just figure it out as you go. So I saw her for probably 4 or 5 weeks in a row. And she's teaching me light language and other like little skills that, are valuable to know and that kind of stuff. And she's just trying to open me up because I'm so closed off due to experiences I had when I was a kid, right? And so I didn't want to see some of that anymore. So I built massive walls. So now I'm starting to like slowly take down my walls. Well, we were doing this meditation, and I was on I was on her little Reiki table, and she's playing sound bowl, and she's just channeling and playing sound bowls and humming and singing and doing her little, little sound bowl thing. And I'm there, and I'm supposed to be experiencing something, right? And I'm just laying there. And after she quits playing, and then she's like, so what did you see? I'm like, I didn't see anything. And she's like, well, they told me that you got what you needed. So what did you get? Like, what happened? I'm like, well, I was standing, and it was turquoise around me. And then I just knew that I was at the beach. And then I looked around, and I could tell that there was like a rock coming out of the beach, and it looks kind of like if you're standing on St. Lucia. Even though I haven't been there, I know that that's like what it looks like. And so, and I'm like, then I look off in the distance, and there's this white light, and then there's like Yeshua that comes up to me, does this little circle thing where you think your third eye is, where your pineal gland is, in the middle right here, and like grabs my face, tells me some stuff, and then goes away. And she's like, I thought you didn't see anything. I said, I didn't see it. I'm like, it's like a soft picture in my mind. It's like a dream that you could barely remember, but it's there. I said, that's like how I get it. She's like, well, what do you think seeing is? And that literally was the sentence that changed the course of my entire life. And that's the moment I realized, I'm like, oh shit, I see all kinds of stuff. I like see stuff all the time. You mean to tell me that it doesn't have to look like I'm looking at it with my eyes open, with my eyes closed, for my clairvoyance to be on? And that was the moment that changed my life. So that all happened after the crystal shop was open. But the crystal shop had to come first in order to align me with the people coming through the shop to get me to this path, if that makes sense.
That's wild, because sometimes I wonder, I'm like, am I just daydreaming, or is this like, that's so crazy.
Yeah. I like to say there's no such thing as your imagination. And I think there's even like, I don't know if it's my podcast or the boys podcast, or one of my first podcasts we did is there's literally I think it's the boys podcast. I'll know, call it Conspiracy Boys. It's called There's No Such Thing as an Imagination, because there really is no such thing as an imagination. Your imagination does not exist.
That makes sense. That's so wild. And so Reiki, could you explain Reiki a little bit? I've listened to some podcasts about it, but like, I'm not too familiar with like Reiki versus everything else.
Yeah. So there's different modalities. There's like some people that practice pranic healing. There's some people that do Reiki, and there's different types of Reiki. There's crystal Reiki. There's like dragon's fire Reiki. There's lots of different branches of Reiki. I got Reiki certified during COVID. I felt really called to doing that during COVID. And this is still all before we opened the shop, by the way. And so I got certified in Reiki. It's been quite a few years now, 4 or 5 years now. And so Reiki essentially is you being a channel for universal energy to be able to move through someone else's body who may be experiencing blocks in their energy field, or whose energy might not be flowing properly. Their meridians may be off. There's could be, tears and rips in their auric field or in their light body. And so you're the conduit for the universal energy because their body is not pulling it through properly. So you're trying to open them up as the clear conduit for universal energy.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I feel like I need a lot of that.
Yeah.
So then the thing that's really blows my mind whenever I've listened to any of your episodes or when you were on the Cult of Conspiracy, how did you first get into the whole Akashic records?
So I first started kind of demon slaying, I guess would be like the beginning, I guess. And then, but I had this particular like past life that kept coming up. And I know it's like a super controversial life, but I've talked about it before because everybody thinks that they're Joan of Arc. Literally everyone's like, I was Joan of Arc. I was Joan of Arc. So in the beginning, it was really like, okay, why is she coming up? And so I had a lot of, being in a crystal shop, you have a lot of psychic people around you, some that know you and some that are live in other states. And so I was really feeling like really drawn to it. And I had this girl who is a woman, I should say. She's like a shaman and she does like soul retrieval work and all that kind of stuff. And she was, in like Seattle area. And so I was talking to her at the time and I was like, this is really coming up for me. Like, I don't know what the message is, but like it kept coming up just randomly. Like, why would Joan of Arc keep coming up? It's such a weird thing to constantly be coming up. So granted, big fan, up until that point, I'm all about girls like slaying on the battlefield. Like I can vibe with that. And so, I started I had done a past life regression before where I was like hypnotized to go under and I couldn't see any past lives really in it. So I kept trying to go and it wouldn't bring me into a past life, but I cleared all the trauma from this life that would have been maybe causing blocks for me to be able to go. So I already knew the steps to go to see a past life because I had paid somebody hundreds of dollars to hypnotize me to get me there. And so I'm just like laying down in my living room with an obscene amount of crystals around me because I'm like, you're going to have to vibrate and get me into the right frequency because I need to figure out what this is. The shaman is telling me that I got to go see it for myself. And so I'm trying to meditate on it. I'm trying to watch it on my TV. And so I'm watching like little documentaries about her, seeing if like something's going to click or if like the message is going to be there. And the moment that it clicked for me is that they talked about in one of the documentaries how Merlin prophesied Joan of Arc's life. And even though he lived way before, Merlin gave this prophecy to Joan of Arc. Well, the person who came into the shop who gave me the prophecy is actually Merlin incarnated. So that was the moment that I was like, there ain't no way. And so that's when I told her, I was like, am I Joan of Arc? She's like, are you? And I'm like, I think I am. And so that's where like that came from. And so once I really understood how to go see that life, I realized how easy it was for me once I started like opening up that like block that I had that I was just imagining stuff and I was making everything up. Once I let that energy go and I was like, okay, so what? If it's not real, if you're not really her, it doesn't matter. You're not going profess to the world. You're not trying to go like alter history by being Joan of Arc. It doesn't matter. So like none of that matters. Any of my past lives, that's like, it's like, I could take it or leave it. I don't need to be associated with them. In this life, I'm Cristy Nicole doing Cristy Nicole shit. So it doesn't matter if I wasn't. So there's no harm, no foul there in thinking or believing if it aligns you in a positive way. But from there is whenever I started really realizing that not only could I see my lives, but I could see everyone else's really clear. And then I've had like this really rough period where I was like going into because I didn't have to go into an Akashic. Everybody's like reciting some little prayer, asking for permission to be able to pull somebody's book to be able to see in it. And I didn't have to do any of that. I literally would just stand in their energy field, look into their silver cord, and all of their lives would be there. I'd go walk to the one I wanted to be in, and then I was in their life. So I didn't really understand what was going on with people in this Akashic record. And then I realized that those are people who their frequency does not allow them permission to just willy-nilly go into somebody's energy field and look at their actual lives. So they have like these Akashic records that are created within the matrix. So that way, if they wanted to alter the course of your entire life, they could have somebody go read your Akashic for you, tell you something that's not true in that book, and now is corded to you, and now they can alter your future. So that's whenever I was like looking at the Elohim who work in the Akashic, and they were literally like smudging out records in people's books, changing the data. The ink from the page would transfer back into the pen. It's like once whatever was read, they would pull it off of their book like it never existed. And I'm watching this and I'm just like, what the actual fuck is going on here? And then I started burning down every single Akashic library that I could possibly find. So I know like Akashic is like the technical term for whatever it is, but they are like these harbors of dark, evil energy in our matrix. It's like these little storerooms of corrupted files that they pop in and give to people. So that's kind of my little Akashic spiel.
Crazy. So
Yeah.
do you have the ability to see like people's energy? Like even me, I'm in Kansas, like you have to be around them personally, or can you do it from different states? And
Yeah, no, I can do it from different states, and I can have people that ask me questions like, hey, my son's going through some stuff. Do you mind like checking? And they're like, do you need his birth date and his picture? Because most readers need that amount of information. And I'm like, no, you are thinking about him. I can already be in this field from transferring into your energy field, and I can run through your thoughts and find him and be in his energy field. So it's just like, I don't need the amount of data that other people need in order to be able to access people's energy fields.
that's badass. And
It
so
has pluses and minuses.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay, you already answered that. Can anyone, I think you've said that anyone can, but can anyone, like if I started trying to, because I've tried to meditate and do stuff, and I just feel like sometimes I just either overthink it or I underthink it. But can anyone essentially try to tap into this and do it? Or
Yeah.
would you say you have more of an ability to be able to do it?
Yeah. So my kind of like the unfolding of me having such the ability that I have now is, well, I've kind of always had a heightened ability from the beginning. And I didn't fully understand that until I interacted with enough people. And that's whenever like other psychics, other mediums, other intuitives, other energy workers. And I just thought that I was just like everyone else for a long time. I just thought that my ability was the same as everyone else's. And when I would explain how I would see something or do something, and I'm like, that's not how you do it. And they're like, no, nobody does it like that. And I'm just like, oh, well, it's that easy. That's how I do it. And so like it took a little while for me to understand that my access to people is different than most other people's. And so part of that has to do with, I know a lot of my past lives, and I had a lot of really, really spiritual past lives. So because of that, I know that in those lives, I've pulled back fragments of myself. I tried to become as sovereign as possible in those lives. So when I'm popping up, I'm not popping up with a lot of what I call muggle lives on the planet. I kind of do the spiritual shit in most of my lives. And so since I'm on a slightly heightened, spiritual path in most of my life, I get to incarnate with more Christ-like than a lot of people because I've pulled back so many of my fragments from first density, which is hell. And then, second, all the different densities. I constantly work to pull those back in all of my lives that when I got here in this place, I'd already had a good chunk of my life, my energy, my fragments, soul fragments, essences are left behind. There's a lot that we leave behind from life to life, or that entities take from us. And so I had so much of it already that whenever I started pulling stuff back in this life, like going into past lives, finding fragments, pulling them back, doing all of that, it really opened me up to where my frequency is, I stay in like the heart frequency a whole lot. Like I'm in a really strong frequency of unconditional love right now, which gives me access to things that if you're vibrating in your ego and you're vibrating really low, or even like, and I say this all the time, ego doesn't necessarily have to be in your solar plexus, like how we think, religious people have ego, and it's like we associate it with something as being like negative from like a masculine energy perspective. But there are lots of people with like spiritual ego as well who I call it the Buddhist monk syndrome. And that's basically where, because you have to isolate yourself, and you can meditate for 9 hours a day, and you have like, you're going to find nirvana, and you have all of this woo-woo shit because you completely pull yourself away from society. And that's how you get to find it. It's not by living alongside the community. It's not because you're ascending while being an everyday citizen of the planet. They kind of get in there's a spiritual ego as well, where people think that the higher they ascend, they're like these gurus and they're better than everybody else. So that's an energy, ego as well. It's a spiritual ego. So because my energy just so happens to sit incredibly, incredibly in unconditional love. I know, but some people are like, oh, yeah, whatever, you're in unconditional. Like, I don't want to be. Like, sometimes I just want to curse somebody. Like, sometimes I want to just light a black candle and set somebody ablaze. And I just cannot do it. I'll like have other like very witchy, magical people around me. And I was like, let me try to see if I could, it's like a child sex predator, or, like somebody that's awful, like somebody at the Vatican or something, somebody that's really just trafficking a lot of kids or something like that. I'm like, I just want to like, all this energy and knowledge and shit that I have, let me just smite somebody, right? And so, like, I'll try to put all my energy, all the little bit of hate I can find into something, and then I'll light it. And they're like, yeah, no, that didn't do nothing. And I'm like, God damn it. It's so, there is a benefit. I do get to, like, because people's energy fields, like, trust me in their energy field. It's like that God consciousness that exists within us, because I align to it. I get to, hop in and out of people and not cause harm. But there is a cost to that. It's like, if I wanted to go be in a lower frequency for the betterment of the planet, it's like, I can't do it. So there is a definite trade-off for being in this energy. And not everybody, that doesn't align for everybody in all of their incarnations to be the love and light one. We do need people who can say, you know what, you need to go. And now I'm going to, grab some doll and do something to somebody that's, harming kids. Like, and granted, I know, kill them with kindness, kill them with love them to death. But the Matrix isn't really set up to love people to death.
So then when you said you were in like your demon slayer stage, were you in a different frequency then than like you are now?
No, I just use Christ light to do it. So, what we call Christ light. I don't really like the word Christ, but like divine light. I was using divine light to be able to do it. I mean, I still do it all the time. I'm like the little town exorcist. Whenever anybody has something icky around them, everybody, they ask anybody and anybody knows me. They're like, oh, you need to go see Christy at Awakenings. Like everybody knows. I'll get messages all the time. We literally had someone come into the shop the other day with 3 huge scratch marks across their chest from a skinwalker that like he caught in their attic. And so we do see quite a few interesting things in like the demon slaying world. Yeah.
No shit. My son, he's like 8 and he is like infatuated with skinwalkers. I can't wait to show him this. He's going to lose his mind.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that's wild. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I
So, I mean, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, right? So, but my little expertise is because I do sit in what Earth considers to be divine feminine energy, although I do feel like I feel like our elements aren't our elements, and I feel like divine feminine energy is not in the matrix what it's supposed to be outside of the matrix. I feel like there is disharmony there between, say, like the energy of like an oracle, which is absolute pure light, okay, pure light consciousness, and then and just Nyx energy, and so that's the primordial, goddess of dark, and so if you go outside and you sit with those entities and you try to sit in their full power, that feminine energy does not look how divine feminine energy looks within the matrix at all. It's not even night and day. It's almost like the way we perceive masculines is the way feminines are outside of the matrix. It's like they kind of got the energy reversed to where masculines are trying to portray feminines because feminines are the more powerful form outside of the matrix. So
That's wild. Would you say that like there's like certain things like how they have like the fluoride in the water and they say that like calcifies our pineal gland? Do you think that there is a bunch of stuff like that that's making it to where there's a lot more people that aren't able to do this as well?
Okay. So that is a very complicated question to ask, first of all, because I have figured out that our third eye is not supposed to be in our pineal gland at all. Okay. So the fact that they have been indoctrinating with that, it's just a very, so if you're going to build pyramids and you're going to put obelisk and you're going to do all this stuff, essentially, because you're going to send out frequencies to control chips that are placed within people's brains, right? Our pineal glands have crystals in them. What do computer chips have? Crystals in them. So if you want someone to think that their third eye, which is a chakra that was created within the matrix, that doesn't exist outside of the matrix, by the way. So if you want somebody to believe that from the grand design of being a human, where our third eye was your intuition is a gut feeling in your stomach, because that's a bigger brain than the one in your head. That's where your third eye is supposed to be. But if you want to start rearranging people's chakras, all you have to do is start telling them, hey, your third eye is in your pineal. What is your body going to do? Your body's going to physically move your third eye from your stomach into your pineal gland because you told it to. So the misinformation about where our chakras are set up and how they work has been going on since they decided that they wanted to control humanity. And we're going way far back, like early Egyptian days. So, yeah.
That is, yeah, because I just seen a thing the other day about how, like, besides your brain, like, your stomach is, like, your gut's directly connected to your brain, and a lot of problems stem from your gut, and if your gut's not good, then that's going to fuck everything else up. And that makes sense. That's, so, but we still have 7 chakras, right?
No.
No?
No. And actually, your crown chakra is supposed to be around your heart. So you actually have a couple heart chakras. You have one that is like a cosmic heart chakra, which is like a divine or like divine union chakra. I don't know what to call all the chakras, that how I see them, because I know no one else sees them quite the way I do quite yet. And I haven't written a book about it. So I don't really know what I'm doing with this information that's sitting on this whiteboard at my shop. Okay. And so, but your crown chakra, everybody thinks is on top of their head. It's really not. It's actually in your heart. There's a actual valve that goes around it, and it's called the oracle. And that outside of the energy of that oracle valve is your crown chakra, which is why, like, and a lot of people know that. That's why you see like the Sacred Heart sometimes with a crown on it. It's because your crown sits on top of your heart. And so there are little symbols throughout like history and throughout the world where when you just look at it and think, oh, that's because of Christ, that's because of the king, you're not associating it necessarily with being a chakra, but it's literally like there. And so, and that's not even to say that whoever drew that even like knew that that's where they were channeling that information from, right? But if you're tapping into source consciousness and you actually see the energy that looks like a crown around your heart, and somebody was trying to communicate to them the truth, but their lens was like, oh, it's Jesus, it's our King, or it's our Lord and Savior, then like, that's what the meaning is going to be, even though this divine source was probably trying to tell them, hey, no, like that's where your crown, like chakra, that's where your energy source is. So it's just kind of interesting to sit back and look at it from like my perspective of like traveling back in time and watching humanity actually be created in the lab, and then the project's being dropped multiple times, and then them deciding to re-up the project on Mars, and then they got brought back to Earth whenever they were ready, and they wiped out humanity a couple of times to where we were like hardly anybody here, and they restarted it, and it's just whenever you can zoom through time and space like the way I can without the filters that a lot of people experience things, is really kind of interesting to start to slowly piece stuff together. Like, I wish I didn't have to be in third density. I wish I had like some patrons that were just like, oh, hey girl, I like the way you think. Here's $1 million. How about you write some books for humanity? I'd be like, huh, bet daddy. But that's not how my life is playing out. So I still have to work, and I don't have, as much time to do like the really cool things as far as like writing books and being like that, mad crazy person that, in a couple hundred years they're going to be reading and be like, oh my God, this is the most profound thing I've ever read in my life. But at the time you're like the village crazy person, because you can see more than other people could see at the time. So.
Hell yeah. And when you say like them going to Mars and coming back, would you say that is like Anunnaki?
Oh yeah, 100%. Me and them do not get along.
Oh shit.
At all. I am like their nemesis to the fullest. I am a straight menace when it comes to everything that they're working on. I'm always trying to pull different frequencies into their part of the matrix, and I'm a straight menace over there. So, yeah.
That's crazy, because some people talk about Anunnaki like they're the good people, but then
of course,
that's wild. I'm getting my mind blown right now. Everything about this is wild.
So another thing to understand when you're listening to people speak about, like spiritual things that they experience and their perspective is, so let's just say you've had a lot of incarnations, or it doesn't even have to be on Earth. You just had a lot of past lives, and, they could be extraterrestrial, they can be whatever. If the frequency of those lives puts you to where, you have a lot of fragments that might be trapped in first density, which is Tartarus. Hell actually looks like little, there's like ant mounds, and they go down and there's these different little caverns and stuff like that. Multiple beings have their own hell. So just because I'm going to one hell does not mean I would ever see you in it, because you could be contracted by a different entity to go to their hell because you sold your soul to somebody else who's collecting their own little fragments of people somewhere else. Okay. So we can never see each other ever down there. And so but the thing about it is I've been there multiple times in between all of my incarnations, and they have a pretty decent size. Most of my fragments exist there. Then whenever I am going into astral, I am going to where most of me exists outside of this incarnated body. So if I am 40% in this body, which most people are like 20% in their bodies, 8% in their bodies, there's really not a whole lot of people's full consciousness in their human bodies. But I feel like you could look at a lot of people and be like, oh yeah, you're definitely on the borderline of not being real, right? And so if most of your pieces are in first density, you're going to have a perspective on what's happening here from that lens. So a lot of people are talking about, of course, the Anunnaki look like they're vibing higher than when you're fucking in hell. Like, they're obviously going to look like good guys to you. And the message that they're going to give you is going to resonate with you and seem like it's a higher vibration than the vibration you're going to when you're actually going into astral. So that's why, like, I really like try to coach people to like go try to figure out your past lives. Like, go just do exercises where you're meditating and you're just calling back fragments. You're just like, okay, I'm going into first density and I'm going to just ask my fragments to light up like little blue fireflies. And I'm going to pull them back to me. And then I'm going to go to second density and I'm going to do the same thing. And you could go from first density to 21st density. And every time you do it, you call all your fragments back. Now, is that going to give you all of it? No. Because you're not going to be able to consciously perceive where some of it is. But the more you pull back, the more you'll be able to see, and the more, sovereign you'll become, because the more whole you're going to be incarnated here. And then the more power you have. And that's the thing about us being incarnated as human. We are so powerful here because we're in body. We are physical form. A lot of the extraterrestrials and stuff that, people interact with, they're just like light bodies. They're not even they're not physical matter. And so because we are physical matter, we can alter other physical matter within existence. So just keep that in mind. So not everybody's perspective is going to be to where they can flip through the densities or flip through multiple lenses. And that's the same thing with some people who like feel, like really high and mighty. Well, maybe guess what? Most of their fragments might be with some angelic being. So most of their fragments might be in seventh density. So whenever they're looking down on everything, they might have, that seventh density perspective on the way things should be here on Earth. And if most of your fragments are stuck on Earth, like trapped here from drowning and all different types of death, and they're kind of like being played about here on Earth, you could look at things from like a really like compassion for humanity perspective, where somebody's looking at it higher and telling you, oh, that's stupid because your human body doesn't matter. So everybody has these different perspectives, and their visions and astral are different based off of the density that they go to when they're actually getting out of their body and leaving and going into astral.
Damn.
It's really complicated.
It sounds so complicated, but it's so interesting. Yeah. So if say in my past life, I don't know, made a deal with someone and it fucked me, like sold my soul to the devil or whatever they say, that could be still fucking me now and I wouldn't know it. Because didn't you say, is there a way to like clear all the past life trauma to get like out of that shit?
Yeah, your past lives are 100% affecting you. There's no maybe, well, unless it's your first life. And chances are, if it is your first life, you probably have a whole, like, I know like everybody's like autism is on a rise and all this sorts of stuff. But a lot of people with autism, it is because they're trying to flush the planet with newer souls. So that way they can take over, because a lot of the old souls are starting to remember because the frequency is shifting here. And so how do you combat people from remembering? You put a whole generation of people that have nothing to remember how Earth was before. And so a lot of people that have, that low functioning autism are actually new souls coming in. So unless you're one of those people, and that you've been here before, because purgatory exists, and I call it the purgatory loop. Basically it's like this scenario that you can visualize it in your mind. It's like heaven is a holding cell. It's really lovely. Okay. There's like it could look like a little city to you, or like little meadow, and everything's all white light, pearly gates, all that jazz, right? And so that's what purgatory looks like. And we think that we're going to heaven, but basically it's a huge like airport hangar, and you're not allowed to go swap out your luggage. You're stuck with the same dirty shit that you wore in the life before. You're just waiting at your next gate to come back down. Well, in my last life, maybe I was incarnated at the beach, so I didn't need a whole lot of clothes. And so I'm just like a couple swimsuits and, I'm calling it good. But now I'm going incarnate in Alaska. And now I'm ill prepared for what I'm about to go into, because I didn't get to go drop off my baggage from my last life and pick up new baggage to prepare myself for my new life. So everybody has past life baggage and things that they're bringing along with them, because we're in the same airport and we never get to go home. We're always just waiting to go from incarnation to incarnation, just catching planes left and right and hanging out in this beautiful little place in the matrix that we call heaven. Is basically just a purgatory prison. And so everybody has baggage.
Damn, that makes so much sense. Oh man. So like, when you're like doing like the meditations to get into like the spiritual, is there certain crystals that make it easier, or like music, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's gotten so easy for me. A lot of times I have to like stop and be like, okay, I'm up there all the time. There's really not a whole lot of disconnect between if I want to pop up and I want to pop back down. The way that I kind of safeguard myself is I normally have a pendulum in my hand, and because I swing it, and I know a lot of people like can ask yes or no questions with their pendulum, and it will swing back and forth. Yes, it will swing side to side if it's no. It still does that in my field, but I don't necessarily use it for that. But when I'm swinging a pendulum, what I'm doing is I'm telling my energy field that, okay, we can go in astral because I'm going to connect and be fully present there. If I'm not swinging it, I don't want nothing to come talk to me. I have to do third density stuff. I have to physically be here on earth. So that's kind of like my little method to keep me in and out of that state, is to swing a pendulum in my hand. I tell people sometimes too, it's like really good if you just get like a little crystal or like a stone or something, whatever it might be. Could be a rosary, could be whatever. I go up in astral, I hold a rosary sometimes depending on what I need to do. But fidget with it in your fingers, and that'll let your energy field know, like, okay, she's about to go up, and we can let our little walls come down because she's trying to connect. So when you train your energy field to know, okay, we're not connecting right now, and okay, yes, we're connecting, you have to make a distinct difference between the two, and going in between the two will become easier because you train your energy field to know when it's a go and when it's a stop. So I like to give that disclaimer to people. The other thing is that I realized is you're going to be one or two types of meditation people. You're going to be the type of person that meditates because you have anxiety. You have to quiet your mind, because without it, like, you can't function in third density. Okay. It's your third density little safe word, which beautiful practice. And I was there for a really long time until I healed all my fucking shit. That's as far as I could go. I couldn't take meditating any further. Now, if you're a person and you don't necessarily need that because you feel calmness in your energy field, you've healed a lot of your trauma, you've done all your shadow work, dark night of the souls, you've had all that kind of happen, and you're really ready to start going beyond, what you're going to have to do is do meditations where you're directing where your energy is going. You can't just sit there all quiet and be like, I didn't see anything again, because that's what I was doing. I was just like, nothing came to me. I saw some swirly blue lights or some purple light came in, and that's as far as I got, right? That's like what we think. We think that we're just going to be magically bestowed with like spiritual truths that like would help us to escape the matrix, and that, the matrix really wants us to see that shit, and they don't. So if you want to start actually being active in your meditations to where you start traveling, you have to start setting really strong intentions, or start finding meditations that are like a past life meditation, or and that's what I've been telling my friend Zeka, is that I'm like, I really need to get in the meditation game on Spotify, or on like Apple, because I have all of my events pretty much come with meditations, every single one. And I can get people who can't see much without me to wherever it is that we need to see so effortlessly. I don't know if it's just the way I see it, or the way I explain it, or just the frequency of my voice, which to me isn't comforting at all, but it just works. I guess it's the unconditional love thing. And I don't have one of those really beautiful, soft, meditating voices. Like, that's just not who I am. I'm an Aries, and I'm loud, and I'm, and so, but it works. It works. I mean, I do obviously quiet my voice whenever I'm leading a meditation. I'm not this obnoxious, but, I keep saying that I need to start like picking things that I see and recording a meditation on how to go to the cosmic tree. how to go see divine feminine source or God and divine masculine source energy, how to go to Valhalla, how to go to the wishing tree or the tree of immortality in Valhalla. You know, like start doing those kinds of things. And there's other like planets that or like worlds or realms that exist around the cosmic tree. And I really don't know what they're called here. I just know that I can see them. One I call Narnia because it reminds me of the Chronicles of Narnia. One I call Jerusalem because the realm looks like Jerusalem. And so like, I just have all these like made up names for all these things that I see because like I can't reference it back to any story that I can find where somebody's describing that it exists because I honestly don't think that they want us to know that it exists. But, you know, but even just taking like steps back in time to where you can go look at the tree of lives that were here, go see if you exist in a pod. If you were one of the first humans to walk off of a tree of life onto the planet, like just lead people through those meditations. So maybe this is the fucking year that I get my life together, you know, so we'll see. But do active meditations if you're trying to go see something in astral. Don't just sit there and hope for the best and say, okay, spirit guides, show me whatever. Chances are your spirit guides don't want you to go see whatever it is that is out there anyways. They want to keep you trapped using your ancestors or the frequency of your ancestors because for you to tap out of the matrix, you have to vibrate so much higher than them and that they become irrelevant to you. The more sovereign you become, you don't need spirit guides. You're your own spirit guide. And why would they want to lose you? Why would they want to lose that control over you? They don't. So don't just sit there hoping that your guides are going to bring some lovely little picture to you. Actually set the intention. Show me them carving the Grand Canyon to build the pyramids. Set the request for what it is that you want to actually go see and go travel. Set your intention in your mind. Think, okay, if I were to be here and then I can turn into a ball of light and I could travel back through time, how would that look for me to travel back through time? Would I go under the ground? Would I go however? And whatever that makes sense to you, do it. Go into your meditation, visualize yourself as being a ball of light, travel back through time, and go to the Grand Canyon. And whenever you get to the Grand Canyon, whenever you like it opens up, that scene opens up for you, see if they're digging it out because they are digging it out. But set your intention to go see something specific. And I like to tell people that because you could go listen to, you know, tons of people talk about spiritual stuff. And like, you're wondering, like, did that actually happen in history? Just go look. Like, don't just take the history a book's word for it. Go actually see. That's my favorite thing about the Bible too, is everybody's like, you know, on and off about the Bible. I'll just go look at the passage and I just go pop in and I was like, who wrote this? Who channeled you that message? What dark entity actually was trying to make you say this? Did they actually say what is in the Bible right now? And what's the actual story of what happened? So the better you get at snapping around, you could literally just go see anything. But to get to that place where your energy is going to be trusted in past lives without having awful butterfly effects, you're going to have to become more sovereign, which starts with you collecting all of your fragments. So now you're not hopping back in time, distorting something, because you're tapping back in Christ light, not being where most of your energy is stuck, being manipulated by some demon in hell.
Damn, that's awesome. That is so crazy. And yeah, I definitely got a bunch of stuff I'm going to start trying.
Uh-huh.
Man, I wanted to see. Okay, are there any like upcoming astrological events that or shifts or anything that you know of?
So the funny thing about the Matrix is that most of the programs exist on a loop. And I know that's kind of like, ooh, conspiracy theory information anyways, is that, oh, every so many years, everything loops and history repeats itself. History, that term doesn't exist for nothing. It absolutely does exist. But the thing that interests me is, so many people get caught up in, oh my God, it's Mercury retrograde. And granted, sometimes I like to use it just for the sake of, because I want whatever they're saying to happen to me. So I'm going to pull and align myself to that message. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm like, oh, hell no, then I like block it out from my energy field to where the frequency of whatever that event is has no effect on me whatsoever. Right. So, but a lot of that being pushed onto us as a society is like, the more people talk about it, it's like an egregore happens, or like we're manifesting the event itself because so many people are buzzing about X, Y, and Z happening. So it's like there are a few like really good astrologers that it's like the whole world trusts, and they'll have their little early predictions. And then all the other little astrologers will listen to like their little couple people, and then they'll start creating stuff based off of what they said. And there's really like very few people who are actually like coming up with this information that's literally controlling an entire world of people. So I find it kind of funny that, you know, of all the things that people in the spiritual community like don't like to be sheep about, it's like the main like it's like their god is astrology, and it's just like that's so human created, and it's just like so it affects us in a way of we call it onto ourselves more than it's supposed to have as much significance to us on earth. Like we create the significance that it has. But they manipulate the shit out of time. Like we're not really in 2025 right now. We're in like 2030 something right now. And so it's like we're basing our astrology off of a fake sky. When really we're falling under the astrology of something that's happening 10, 11, 12 years from now. And so we're so far behind, but the way it affects society is in the past because we're telling ourselves that this is what's happening right now, even though energetically it is not what's happening right now. So it's kind of a complicated subject for me to talk about like things like that, because I'm like, we're not even in a time period that we think we're in right now. And so the world has like really no way of knowing that. But you know, it's really funny because there was very little being talked about the fact that the sun didn't move through the signs as it was supposed to pretty much all summer. In July, it was still like in Cancer when it was supposed to be moved into Leo, and it wasn't actually in the sign of Leo, and then moved from Leo into Virgo, right? And so there's like obvious ass signs to our little sky watchers that clearly the astrology isn't lining up. Clearly, like we're in a time period that doesn't align with what we think it is, but yet everybody is just drone in the matrix to where everybody just dismisses it. And the rest of the little spiritual community, they're just going on about their normal everyday spiritual shit because it feels good that something is constant. I'm like the chaos queen. I want everything that I say to be wrong all the time because it means that I'm getting a deeper access to more frequencies and more perspectives in astro. And I'm like, oh my God, remember when I thought this? I say that all the time. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't have a podcast 3 years ago because that would be embarrassing. And I like that's still even the way from like when my podcast started like a year and a half ago, whenever that was. Like I talked about regular ass chakras. I do not believe that at all anymore. And so I like it's like recorded out there for all the world to hear that I thought chakras were just the 7 ones in our body. And like I practice that 0. So I'm always looking to be wrong. But I would be more concerned about trying to figure out where we actually are in time, and instead of going by what we're being told. So, but you're going to be controlled by the astrology of what's being said by, or even astronomy, you know, the movement of shit, based off of what you hear and based off of what you believe. So when I hear it, my body's just like, huh, yeah, right. And so it doesn't apply to me because I already know that we're not where we think we are. We just had the Chinese Lunar New Year, and I'm like, that ain't the year we're in. And so, you know, in my mind, I already know that there's 2 things happening. But at the same time, so if you're looking to like manifest abundance, Earth is humming, the people are humming in the frequency of that, but the matrix is not. So it's kind of hard to pick apart. And that's why it's kind of hard to get out of the fucking matrix, is because there is a frequency of what society is vibrating at. And then there's a whole different frequency that you're trying to rise above it and out of it. But now you're out of the frequency of manifesting from a people plane. But yet we're not yet ready to manifest from a frequency of a higher vibrating Christ light energy. So you find yourself being stuck in this place where, oh shit, I can't manifest like regular muggles. And then, but there's nothing to manifest up here other than like complicated, can't sleep episodes because you're running a million things through your mind. That's all I'm manifesting right now. It's just like more internal dialogue of like, what the fuck is actually going on here? And so a lot of people like to stay where they are because it's comforting. So I don't want to like pull anybody out of anything that they're not ready to be out of. I just like to create that awareness so that way, whenever you are ready to step out, then you'll be able to be like, oh my God, that girl Christy thought she was crazy, but it's manifesting in my life that the things that she was saying actually hold some weight to it. I've had multiple people that whenever I first went on the call to conspiracy, they hated my guts. They thought that I was the dumbest person that they had ever listened to that ever came on their podcast. And when I tell you, like, these people are like my biggest fans now because they started like listening to me and like, oh no, like she actually does know what she's talking about. I actually can see her in astral. I actually know like what she looks like and that she's actually doing the things that she says she's doing. But at first it's like off-putting for somebody to completely wreck everything that you believe to be true. Like a lot of people are just like taken aback. And I totally get it. And part of it is that your programming doesn't align with my truth in this life, which is perfectly fine. And I would hate to take anybody from their path just by me being the person that's a little too far advanced for her time.
That's so awesome. And I think when I first heard you on the Cold Conspiracy, I was like, holy shit, sounds badass. And I was like hooked. And I totally forgot. I re-listened to your latest episode on your podcast. And yeah, you did talk about how we're in a different timeline and why the fuck, other than to, generally just fuck with us, like, what do you think the main reason of that is? Is it to throw off all of our, everything that to help benefit them and not benefit us?
Yeah, so there are key players on the planet right now. And I think that no matter where you are in like your little spiritual journey, that most people would agree with that, unless you're like really low vibrating spiritually and you think that you're more significant than everybody else there. But there are key players here on the planet, and some key players do not even know that they're a key player. They're living their life, doing their little regular spiritual shit, and they have no idea that they are supposed to have some significant role or are playing a significant role on the planet. So timelines exist within the matrix. They also exist outside of the matrix, but the ones in the matrix, if they're fast forwarding time, then they're moving my timeline forward 11 years. So all the things that were supposed to happen in that 11-year period are no longer aligning for me. So I could have got that I needed to be X, Y, and Z on this date. Well, guess what? They just sped up time to where that is no longer a possibility on my timeline. So they can keep my timeline from never working out for me. So a lot of it is timeline manipulation because the key players on the planet need to miss certain events. So that way we don't evolve to a higher vibrating society. So it is oppression, but it's oppression from a timeline perspective. If they can fast forward you through your timeline, pull you ahead, well, I just missed 10 years, probably like the most significant spiritual years that I would have. Well, now my timeline is reading when I'm in my 50s instead of the timelines that's supposed to be in my 40s. And now I'm trying to do normal 40-year-old shit, but I really need to be doing 50-year-old stuff so that way I can align to whatever's supposed to be happening then. So it's a complete manipulation of our timelines is what they're doing.
It's so fucked up. And I don't trust NASA at all or a lot of stuff I read on the internet, but I did see that NASA said they found in Antarctica like a parallel, like time goes backwards, is what they're saying. It's like a parallel universe, not parallel universe, but it's like I don't know. It's like they said that time goes backwards. Like,
Yeah, it's a Saturn black box.
so then how would that like work though? Like the way the guy was explaining it was like you dump a can out, but the pop's going to go up. And
So it's basically like a reverse. I've looked at this recently, actually. So there's like the little black box theory on Saturn and that kind of thing. There are several black boxes on the planet itself. And so Antarctica does have a black box. So essentially it's like a tesseract that folds into itself instead of moving forward in advancing time. It like folds into itself to where it distorts time altogether. So it's not that time is necessarily moving backwards, it's being distorted completely, which may feel like it's moving backwards, but it's really being completely distorted. And so there are a couple places on the planet that actually do that to keep us in certain loops, to keep us from hitting certain societal milestones or frequency milestones. It's actually like keeping us completely stagnant. So there's enough force inside of a tesseract, okay, moving us forward. So if they create enough black boxes inside of the tesseract that we're in within the matrix, and all of that energy is folding into itself, it actually can freeze the bigger tesseract that we're in to where we're actually not moving forward in time. We're stagnant as shit where we are right now. So I don't really fully know what everybody says about the black box on Saturn. I don't like to look into what other people say. It just like, I mean, it's cool like later on to like know something and to run across an article that talks about it and be like, oh yeah, I thought that shit. And so I like to be able to just like use it as like a little confirmation for me. But if I hear somebody say something about it, just mention it, I'm going straight to go see it for myself. I don't need to know what any false documents on Earth are saying or any like books from somebody else's perspective, their little first density perspective or whatever it is. I don't need to see it from that perspective. I need to see it from my own perspective. So I immediately go to look at it. And so whenever I went to the black box, I'm like, so what is this? And it was unlike anything I had ever seen in my entire life. So basically it's like, you know how they have like this infinity pools? So basically like the edges look like an infinity pool, except the energy is like pouring into itself. And it's constantly collapsing. So instead of time moving forward, it's just being distorted and distorted and distorted. And it's really kind of crazy to go look at it. But basically, it's like causing like a glitch in the matrix to where the tesseract that we're in is trying to move forward, right? On our little Fibonacci sequence, we're trying to move forward in time, but it's basically like glitching us to where we're not actually moving the forward momentum that we're supposed to. So that way, energetically, we're still moving, but physically, we're not. So it causes massive misalignment for us spiritually here on the planet.
so is this like we made this, or was this something that's been here?
So when you say we, could it be people on the planet now incarnated in human bodies who designed this before they became human? Yes, there are lots of those people here. So it is a we. But is it a we from a human perspective that is still trying to keep this going? No, that's definitely extraterrestrial happening. But the thing about it is I look at people in my personal life, and whenever I am standing in the Anunnaki energy on Mars, looking at Earth while they're making plans to come back here, like I know people who are like their head council that are in my personal life. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, you mother. And so it's just, that's the energy. But those people hold anchors for that energy to still be prevalent on Earth. So it's like, it is us and it's not us all at the same time. There are anchors here, but do any of those humans probably remember that they're those anchors? There's probably a couple of people that know they're anchors for dark energy or for some fucked up plan here on earth, I do believe that there are people who know that they're anchors, but the majority of the people have no idea that they're contributing to any of that at this point. They've been incarnated and incarnated and incarnated so many times that they've completely forgotten, and they completely subscribe to their little program in the matrix.
That's so crazy. So, do you ever, you probably don't ever mention to them that they are like anchors for them, because that would probably not be good.
No, well, I also don't like people to be aware of who they are if they're not here to be something that's supposed to be of light. Why would I remind somebody that, you really hold all this dark, evil power? I would never tell anyone that. And I keep a lot of stuff to myself. I only, reveal certain things. I know so much more than I will ever say out loud. When I was little, I always knew that I was going to be picked up. Like the government was going to come find me, or I was waiting to be abducted when I was little, like all the time. I was always scared, looking out the window, waiting for someone to come and get me. And so, when you're a kid and then you grow up, you're like, oh my God, that was so stupid. And then you get to where I am now, and you're like, girl, you knew that it was going to, like, you knew you were in hiding. You knew you were in hiding. And now I'm to a place where I have enough sovereignty and enough power to where, like, I don't really fear it. I think everybody always will kind of fear the government to a certain extent, right? Exposing. So I don't really go off on government stuff. It's not my place. I'm not here to do it. I can work on things like that without anyone really even knowing. But that's really, it's just one, perspective of what's going on here. And that's like, I know your little thing is like the earth is flat or whatever, but it's like that same thing. It's because, like, in certain densities, the earth is flat. In certain densities, the earth is, it's just a disc. In certain densities, they have it projected to where the earth is round in the matrix. There's somewhere it's round as shit whenever you go out and you look back at it. But the planes that we're supposed to exist on, it's not. But so the earth looks a million different ways based off of the perspective, and all of those things as a whole contribute to our experience here. So it's the same thing with like the government. That's only one small little % of what's actually going on cosmically here. But most people can't get past the government part of it. It's like, that's the part. There's aliens and the government knows, and they're trying to control us all. But people never go outside of that. And so that's where the hill most people go to die on is everything's a government conspiracy. And it's the aliens, and which, I mean, is true, but those extraterrestrials are being governed by a higher power. So it's more complicated than that. And until you actually go sit with that higher power and you interact with that in astral, then it's not a part of your reality. But my thing, every time I go into astral, I'm like, okay, who is controlling you? Where's this frequency coming from? I'm always going outside and outside and outside. And I'm like, okay, well, what's outside of our cosmic tree? Well, there's plenty of other cosmic trees. I'm like, okay, well, what's outside of like where we are within all this cosmic tree shit? Then I'm like, okay, well, how did Nyx get here? She had to exist before. Where's that primordial energy come from? And then I like go find where that comes from. And then when I'm there, I'm like, oh shit, I don't think I want to go any deeper than this. And then I end up going deeper than that. So I understand so many levels to existence that it's not just within what we think God is. But our God is one of many source beings that exist. And there's a whole story beyond that. And that's like a lot of people want to argue like Gnostic Bible versus regular Bible and stuff. The Gnostic Bible tells what happened before our source, before our God even existed. So we are actually getting stories of pre-existence to our God. And then Sophia is actually the one that who her energy was completely torn to shit. And she actually got severed, and that's what became Nyx, and that's actually what built our realm of existence. But a lot of people, like, we do have some truths here, but a lot of people don't know how to go and see and piece that together because it's so above their pay grade here in the Matrix that it's confusing. And it's not like, oh my God, you're less than anybody else because you can't see it. It's just not every task is for every person in every life to be overwhelmed with. If, I had to do what other people are doing in this incarnation, then, I wouldn't have as much time or as much energy to do what it is that I do. Right. But part of everybody's role is significant. And so a lot of people get really discouraged that they're not carrying somebody else's role. But like, you carrying somebody else's role or their job is you carrying somebody else's burden. So I like to like tell people that what you're doing is your role, and it should be like the highlight of your existence. You should become a master at it instead of trying to become a master at somebody else's role. So
That's wild. And I've always thought that like I've seen a bunch of things where like in the Bible, like in Genesis, they say that God created, but it's actually supposed to be like Elohim gods, like multiple gods created. But you said it was Thea, and then she got split into multiple energies.
Yeah. So a lot of people pronounce it like Yaldabaoth or whatever. It is Aldebaran. The Y is this head makes no sound whenever you talk to that little piece of shit. And so in the Gnostic Bible, it's like there's this whole energy of Sophia, who whenever you see her, she looks very much like kind of like a water nymph would kind of look. And so she essentially got kicked out of that level of heaven. But not only did she get kicked out, she got stripped of almost everything and thrown into a void. And that void is where we exist now. Because there always has to be something that existed before and before and before. But most people can't perceive what that energy is, much less have the capacity to be able to go and actually look at it, right? And so yeah, Sophia became what we know in our mythology as being Nyx. And then I watched like the very first atom being formed. And like, cause I'll go back into cause I can see the beginning of time, right? And then I can see the end of time, and then I can see so much stuff, and I can see how our DNA is supposed to work and all the missing pieces in our DNA and what it looked like whenever humans were first created versus how it looks now, and who we call Eve, who actually designed humanity, how she tricked the Anunnaki into the heart physically beating, and how she tricked them into creating a heart chakra. I can look at like the whole thing, because Eve is like our source God energy. Like it literally is her full fragment creating humanity. So it really is God that created humanity. Okay, there's just some other energy that had a role in allowing it to be created. So I'm still that the whole creation thing is still true. God, divine feminine God created humans. Okay. And so but yeah, so that Nyx energy where we are essentially was created within a void. Okay. And that is like the physicality of our creation. And then once she rested, I could see all the days, how many quadrillions of years day 1 is, and day 2 is other quadrillions of years. And this happened over a very long period of time, right? And so whenever she went to rest is when the Matrix was created. On day 7 is when all hell broke loose. So, I mean, you would have to imagine that by you spending all of your energy breaking apart your consciousness to experience life, to have this more broad perspective of what it is, because she's in a void trying to escape it. So she needs to be able to get back to a functioning society outside of herself to be able to build up a world within this void. So that way, you know, either she can become strong enough or create enough energy and motion to be able to go back to wherever it was she came from, to seek revenge or whatever her little motive was at the time, right? And so there's just, she divided her consciousness because we were in a void and there was nothing. And so she knew that the fastest way for her to multiply is for her to split her consciousness. So you would imagine that after 6 full days, and we're talking about quadrillions of years of time, it's a really long time. Like we can't even conceive how long that is. Every single day, her tirelessly working, that she would probably need to take a little rest. She'd probably be like, okay, this is my creation and it's good. And so she obviously created her version of divine masculine, her counterpart, her a divine counterpart, her a twin flame, right? And so that's when the betrayal happens. You know, you sit back and you watch this feminine energy create all these beautiful things. Now she's taking a nap and you're like, oh, I want to create something. And so that's where the matrix really came into be. And a lot of the energy that we work with within like the matrix, the Elohim, they're not from our void. They're not from her creation. They're from outside. So it's like scouts saying, go in that void and see what she's doing in there. And that's where we get the Elohim. Me and Elohim also do not get along. I really like don't understand why people think that the Elohim are positive in any way. Are there Elohim outside of our realm that are really nice, lovely beings? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. They really do exist out there. But are humans interacting with them? No, because the good ones aren't fucking with us. And so, biblically speaking, in our Bible, there are 4 different gods that have given messages pretending like they're God and that are in the Bible. You read the Bible and you think, oh, it's one God. No, there's 4 different beings. If you go in there and sit in different energy of different parts, there's 4 different ones. And so a lot of like what we believe is there is like this divine masculine God, right? Because everybody's like, oh, it says he. Yeah, because they didn't actually use she in in like any language. There was only one gender, there wasn't she, her, none of that. It was just he forever. There was one pronoun for everything because everybody was all one. And that oneness was he. And so they could have very well been talking about she multiple times, but to us, we're like, oh no, it's he. And I'm not a big book person. I'm not history says, but history does fucking say that feminine pronouns didn't become a thing until like, I don't know, the 15th century, 16th century or some shit like that. That's whenever they started writing the difference between she and he. Before that, there was no such thing. Everybody was a masculine pronoun. Everybody was he. So it's really kind of hard to know just reading the Bible without like a more, psychic perspective on, are they trying to convince you that this is some Elohim that they want you to worship? Or are they really telling you a story about source, about our creator actually creating, what exists here? So, but she did come back around. She did help us become human, which is a really, really big step for us to actually pull her unconditional love frequency into our physical bodies with our heart. So that's a whole nother story.
That's so awesome. That's so badass. That's mind-blowing. I want to see if I have any other questions before. Let me see. I guess if you had one piece of like wisdom or advice that you'd want to share, like what would it be?
Believe nothing you hear. Don't even believe what I say. And people get caught so much off guard whenever I say that. Don't even believe me. If it's not for you in this incarnation, it won't ever vibrate as truth to you. And that is perfectly fine. You do not need to be where I am in this incarnation ever. And a lot of people like spiritually, like we get so caught up. I remember whenever I was first in the shop and people were coming in and they were talking about all this shit and, all these angels and this and all these psychic abilities. And they were having all these like really deep conversations. And I was just like, I got this crystal shop and I don't know none of this shit. And I'm never going to ever be able to like be on this level. And I'm just like a poser. And I was just like having like this breakdown. Right. And so, then the more I was like in it, the more I started being like, oh, you really do just pick it up as you're going. If you're supposed to be on that path. And I tell people, this is a little scenario I use, because I really like I try my hardest to explain the things I see in like earth terms, because a lot of it, like there are no words to describe what it is that you're seeing. You just try to relate it to people the best way you possibly can, right? For like a perspective they do understand. And what I like to explain to people about the way we exist here is that it's like we're at a circus. Okay, we're at a carnival and there are different rides and there's like a conductor in the circus tent and he's trying to control the matrix, okay? and like the Wizard of Oz, okay? And there's all these rides at this carnival. And you come to the carnival, but you have one ticket and you get to go on one ride. And so once you've been to the carnival enough, you have ridden all the rides. So you might have a ride where you are Buddhist as shit. Nobody's pulling you from being Buddhist. You incarnated. That's what you're doing. You are so die hard, the little teacup ride, that no other ride exists to you. This is the ride that's fun. This is the best one. You memorize that ride to a T. You know what color all the flowers are painted on the teacups. You know how fast it goes. You know how many times you go around. You know, like the whole thing is your job in that time you're going to the carnival to memorize the teacup ride. Well, then it's time to go back to the carnival. So you have a different ticket that puts you on a different ride. So now you're on a slide. Okay. That's it. You're only on the slide. Well, you're orthodox as shit. You are die hard orthodox. You're up, down. This is the only one pathway to heaven is this way. And you believe it. You believe it. You see everybody going round and round and you're like, you're not even climbing up to the top. You're just going around in a circle on your little teacup ride, pal. You think you're going somewhere. Look at you still on the ground, spinning around in a circle. Look at me climbing to the top. And so you truly believe that you being on that slide is your pathway to heaven, right? And so, but what happens is you go on enough of these rides at the carnival to where now you get to come in and you just get to stand around and be like, oh yeah, I remember that ride. That one's, I like that one. So you can like dabble in Buddhism for a little while and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. I really like that. This resonates. I just don't resonate no more, but that resonates. And you don't have to spend a lot of time reacquainting yourself with that information. And then you'll go and you'll like, you know, do Catholic for a little while. And you'll be like, in fourth grade, I told my Sunday school teacher, I'm like, you don't have a better reason for me to not eat fish other than because you said so, to only eat fish on Lent. Like that was my whole hang up with the whole damn religion. Was in fourth grade, the woman could not tell me why we could kill fish, but we couldn't kill any other animal. And it didn't make sense to me because I'm like, that's a sentient being. That being has feelings. Why do these matter and these don't? And in fourth grade, I literally was like, all right, I'm done with this. This is stupid. And I knew in fourth grade that I had already been on that ride, you know, and I had not only had I been on that ride, but I had been on that ride while that ride was being written. And so you telling me this information now does not jive with what I experienced back when this shit was being written because I was there. Now, granted, in fourth grade, I didn't know that I was there, but now looking back, I know that I was there. And so you get to a place where if you feel that you can extract certain things from certain religions and keep it moving, oh yeah, I like that. Keep it moving. I like that. Keep it moving. That does not align with shit. They made that up. And then you go to the next thing. Oh, I like this. I like this. Let me keep it moving. If you can do that and not have to completely jump into something to be 100% devout and tell everybody else they're wrong, then you are in the place to where you can start pulling in lots of different information about the matrix. It's time for you to start expanding. But if you are, I just can't see it. It's Jesus Christ and God, and you're fucking black. You know, that's blasphemy for you to say anything else. If that's your perspective, beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. I'm so happy that you are, you know, on this one particular little roller coaster that you keep going on your whole life. I'm cheering for you. I was on that same roller coaster in my life, but I'm just not on that roller coaster anymore. So I like to tell people that kind of sit and figure out, well, what fucking carnival ride am I actually on? And am I supposed to be, maybe this is the life where I don't trust the government. And all my time is supposed to be spent very anti-government because my next life, maybe that's the final ticket I need for me to come back and do something productive for humanity in my next life. So I like to tell my ultimate advice for everybody is do not compare your journey to anyone else's and don't believe shit that anybody else says unless that's the ride you're on. But most people who are in this realm of even considering, you know, whether the earth is round or the earth is flat, or listen to conspiracy theories and, you know, have made it to the end of this podcast listening to my dumb shit, chances are you've already been on most of the fucking rides, okay? And you're walking around the carnival with a pass to where you can hop on and off of anywhere you want to go. You graduated. You got the little season pass wristband, and you can go in and out of anywhere you want to be and take whatever it is, whatever memories you need to go collect, you go collect them and you on to the next one. So if that's where you are, congratulations. But also be kind to other people who are still on one ride for this incarnation. That's the thing that I can't stand the most, is whenever people are just very, like they treat people less than, because they're stuck on a carnival ride, but that's the ticket that they came here to be on. So I just like to give that perspective to people, because, you know, we want to be kind no matter what ride we're on. We don't want to be assholes. And I know that there are plenty enough people who have an asshole ticket. Okay. They're there to haggle you while you're trying to enjoy your ride. But let's just not be one of those people, guys. So that's my advice.
That is so perfect, because you were explaining that and I was like, man, I feel like I just like riding all the rides and stuff. And that is perfect. Hell yes. And then, is there anything that you want to like plug or?
Yeah. So I have all the things. So we do have a little website where we do sell crystals. We don't really update it as much as we should. But it is linked in the shop. I'll send you all the links. I'm sure you post links, right? So
Oh yeah.
I'll give you the links to the shop in our Facebook page as well. We do like live crystal sales where I'll like go on and talk about crystals. Say like, this one's really high vibrational. This one's great to meditate. Da 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 da. I explain it. Give you all the 411 on what crystals help to amplify your field, how long you need to keep it on you before it actually starts to work, all the good stuff. So you can follow us at the shop. The podcast that I do still currently have up is Divinity Unearthed, and I go deep diving into all kind of crazy shit on there. It's ever evolving. I haven't been recording really much lately because I'm about to start a different podcast project. But the Cult of Conspiracy Boys are having me do a weekly podcast on there. So mine will be aired on Monday. And so you'll be able to find me on the Cult of Conspiracy podcast on Monday, starting next Monday, whatever day that is. So
nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also a spiritual coach. I'm in between websites. I had like domain issues to where I got a new debit card and all of my auto payment stuff didn't get paid, but for some reason, when I renew my website once it had went down, they will not link my domain name. So I'm currently building a new one, but I can post you my Wix link for people if they did want to come do past life. Or I do, even if I don't have a particular psychic ability, I still do coaching, because I might not be the most clairaudient person, but I can see enough to tell you exactly what it is you need to do to develop your ability. So it's just kind of sweet because I can coach people from where they are and not where I am. And I like love that about that ability that I have. And I've also kind of started doing hypnosis sessions too, which have been going really well. So I'm about to start putting that out into the world, where because I can see what it is you're telling me, I'm actually standing on side of you while you're in your regression and you're telling me X, Y, and Z. I'm like, yeah, but how about you look behind you, look at your soul fragment, go look at this, go get that, detach this cord, go do this. So it's like we're both playing the video game together. So you're not just going to see it and then you're coming back without all the things that you need to heal from it. I'm actually like standing there next to you while you're there, and helping you to work through your past life visions too. So that's, I'm just about done practicing. And so that'll be up and going here soon too. So that as well. I do all the things. It's just so much. My life is just pure chaos all the time.
Hell yeah. That is so awesome. I'm so happy that you came on, because this has been badass.
Yeah. But it was fun. I'm glad you had me. It's been a little while since I've actually been on the podcast. So I'm happy to be rambling again.
Hell yeah. I'll listen anytime.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely come back.
Awesome. Sweet. Also, catch me on TikTok every week. And as always, I'm your host, Georgie350. Let's hit him with the outro. Bitch. Thank you for watching.
Yeah. Middle of the map. can't swear I'm at. You can say I'm whack, it's just not a fact. Can't tell if I'm awake or I'm in a dream. I just know I'm geeked on amphetamines. Never was a habit, now I gotta have it. Never was a fiend, now I am an addict. Never was a habit, now I gotta have it. Never was a fiend.
Excuse me, sir. Is the Earth round or flat?
Flat.
Why do you say that?
Because of the firmament.
What's the firmament?
Do you even read the Bible, bro?